I'm Christopher Green, and welcome to Canada. Canadians are very resourceful and have come up with some great inventions over the years. Here's a list of 10 inventions invented by Canadians. Number 1. Time zones. Time zones were invented by Sir Sandford Fleming. Number 2. The BlackBerry. It was invented by Canadian Mike Lizardis. While it might not be the most prevalent smartphone these days, it was one of the first. And people were walking around with their eyes glued to their BlackBerries long before they had their eyes glued to their iPhones or their Androids. Number 3. Wheelchair-accessible buses. The first wheelchair-accessible buses were invented by Walker Harris Callow in 1947. He designed the bus to accommodate veterans who were coming back from the Second World War. A lot of these veterans had injuries that required them to use a wheelchair. Unfortunately, getting onto public transit in a wheelchair wasn't very easy. At least until Walker came along and invented his wheelchair-accessible buses. And speaking of wheelchairs, let's move on to number 4. The electric wheelchair. Canadians really care when it comes to not allowing a disability to become a disadvantage. And this care was shown by George Klein in 1952 when he invented the electric wheelchair. Number 5. The Canadarm. The Canadarm is a giant robotic arm used on space shuttles. And more recently, it's been used on the International Space Station. As the name implies, the Canadarm is a Canadian invention, and one of the people who helped this invention come to be was actually my own grandfather, Joseph Lackner. My grandfather was literally a rocket scientist and worked on batteries used in space. He's been recognized by the Canadian Space Agency, the US Air Force, and NASA. He also received an award from a former Canadian Prime Minister. As a little kid, I always thought it was really strange how he kept batteries in the refrigerator to help them keep their charge, but I guess he knew what he was doing. Number 6. The SNOWMOBILE. I suppose it's fitting that a Canadian would invent the snowmobile. Joseph Armand Bombardier, a Quebecer, invented the snowmobile, unfortunately because of a tragedy. During a blizzard, his young son got very sick, and because of all the snow, they couldn't travel to the hospital, and unfortunately he died. Monsieur Bombardier did not want that to happen to anybody else. So he invented the snowmobile. Now fortunately, these days we have things like snow tires and everything, so getting through a blizzard is not as hard as it was back then, and the snowmobile has become more of a fun recreational thing. Number 7. The snowblower. Speaking of snow, there are 2 Canadians who are credited with patents for early versions of the snowblower. Robert Carr Harris of New Brunswick is credited with the first patent, and Arthur Sicard of Quebec is credited with the first practical snowblower. Number 8. The gas mask. During the First World War, Germans used poison gas against the Allied troops. Dr. Clooney McPherson, a Newfoundlander, modified a helmet taken from an enemy prisoner. Using this, he created a gas mask. His efforts saved British, Canadian, and other Dominion lives. Number 9. The Robertson screw. That's right, that screw with a little square indent for your drill or your screw to get in there. It was invented by Canadian P.L. Robertson in 1908. And last but definitely my favorite on the list, number 10. The egg carton. I think this one's especially cool to us who are in the news media industry because it was invented by a newspaper editor. That's right, in 1911, British Columbian newspaper editor Joseph Coyle invented the egg carton. I love these interesting origin stories, and this one develops from a dispute between a local farmer and a local hotel owner. Basically, this farmer sold eggs to this hotel owner, but when they showed up, they were all cracked, and I'm guessing the hotel owner was kind of like,
"These eggs are cracked. I will not receive these eggs. I want my money back."
And the farmer was like,
"Hey, look, man, it ain't my fault that the eggs got cracked. I wasn't driving the truck. Maybe you just cracked them so you don't have to pay for them. You expect me to fall for that old trick?"
And it just kind of got messy. I mean, I guess it already had. The eggs got broken, and that's messy. The editor, Mr. Coyle, solved the problem by creating the egg carton, which allowed the eggs to be transported without jiggling all around and breaking so much. So you see, newspapers are the community's best friend. Wink, wink, wink. So there you have it, 10 Canadian inventions.
Hey, you there! Make sure you like this video and subscribe. And click that little bell down there. Make sure you get a notification every time we make a new video. All right, y'all come back now. You hear?